The Benin Empire was a pre-colonial empire located in what is now southern Nigeria. Its capital was Edo, now known as Benin City, Edo. It should not be confused with the modern-day country called Benin, formerly called Dahomey. The Benin Empire was one of the oldest and most highly developed states in the coastal hinterland of West Africa, dating perhaps to the 11th century CE, until it was annexed by the British Empire in 1897. The original people and founders of the Benin Empire, the Edo people, were initially ruled by the Ogiso dynasty, who called their land Igodomigodo. The rulers or kings were commonly known as Ogiso. Igodo, the first Ogiso, wielded much influence and gained popularity as a good ruler. He died after a long reign and was succeeded by his eldest son. In the 12th century, a great palace intrigue and battle for power erupted between the warrior crown prince Ekaladerhan, son of the last Ogiso, and his young paternal uncle. In anger over an oracle, Prince Ekaladerhan left the royal court with his warriors. When his old father the Ogiso died, the Ogiso dynasty was ended as the people and royal kingmakers preferred their king's son as natural next in line to rule. The exiled Prince Ekaladerhan died at Ogiso. Mayan took up his abode in the palace built for him at Uzema by the elders. Soon after his arrival he married a beautiful lady, Wind, daughter of Osanego, was the ninth Enogi of Igo, by whom he had a son. After some years' residence here he called a meeting of the people and renounced his office, remarking that the country was a land of vexation, and that only a child born, trained and educated in the arts and mysteries of the land could reign over the people. He caused his son born to him by Wind to be made king in his place, and returned to Yoruba land alive. After some years in Ife, he left for Oyo, where he also left a son behind on leaving the place, and his son Ayaka ultimately became the first Alafin of Oyo of the present line, while Mayan himself was reigning as Ani of Ife. Therefore, Mayan of Ife, the father of Wekai, the Oba of Benin, was also the father of Ayaka, the first Alafin of Oyo. Ani of Ife and Alaf of Oyo is a Bni spoken language, or the king's title, and southern Edo language. In Nigeria, Edo has the greatest and rich culture and most influence in West Africa and powerful king in Nigeria. By the 15th century, Edo as a system of protected settlements expanded into a thriving city-state. In the 15th century, the 12th Oba in line, Oba the Great, would expand the city-state to an empire. It was not until the 15th century, during the reign of Oba the Great, that the kingdom's administrative center, the city of Benue, began to be known as Benin City by the Portuguese, and would later be adopted by the locals as well. Before then, due to the pronounced ethnic diversity at the kingdom's headquarters during the 15th century from the successors of Oba, the earlier name by a tribe of the Edos was colloquially spoken as Bni by the mix of Itsekhiri, Isan, Ikar, Ijo Edo, Yoruba living together in the royal administrative center of the kingdom. The Portuguese would write this down as Benin City. Though, farther Edo clans, such as the Itsekiris and the Yorubas, still referred to the city as Ubni up till the late 19th century, as evidence implies. Aside from Benin City, the system of rule of the Oba in his kingdom, even through the golden age of the kingdom, was still loosely based after the Ogiso dynasty, which was military and royal protection in exchange of use of resources and implementation of taxes paid to the royal administrative center. Language and culture was not enforced but remained heterogeneous and localized according to each group within the kingdom, though a local enogi was often appointed by the Oba for specified ethnic areas. Oral tradition. The first name of the Benin Empire, since its creation sometime in the first millennium CE, was Igodomigodo, as called by its own inhabitants. Their ruler was called Ogiso. Nowadays, nearly 36 known Ogiso are accounted for as rulers of this first form of the state. According to the Edo oral tradition, during the reign of the last Ogiso, his son and heir apparent, Ekaladerhan, was banished from Igodomigodo as a result of one of the queens having deliberately changed an oracle message to the Ogiso. Prince Ekaladerhan was a powerful warrior and well-loved. On leaving Benin he travelled west to the land of the Yoruba, where he became king and renamed himself Izoduwa, which is now corrupt to Oduduwa by Yorubas. Most Yoruba cultures and festival ethnics are now practiced by Edo, such as Ishango, Ogun, Festock of Idia, mother of Oba Eshiji of Benin. Also, most foods of the Yoruba are now consumed by the Edo, such as Iyan, Eman, Usi, Igiawo and Aji. Most current cities in West Nigeria are a mix of Edo and Yoruba, such as Ekiti, Koji, Oyo, Ogun, Ondo and Lagos itself. On the death of his father, the last Ogiso, a group of Benin chiefs led by Chief Oliha came to Ife, pleading with Oduduwa to return to Igodomigodo to ascend the throne. Oduduwa's reply was that a ruler cannot leave his domain, but he had 7 sons and would ask one of them to go back to become the next king there. Ekaladerhan was the first Oba or king of the new dynasty after the end of the era of Ogiso. He changed the ancient name of Igodomigodo to Edo. Centuries later, in 1440, Oba Gway, also known as Gway the Great, came to power and turned the city-state into an empire. It was only at this time that the administrative center of the kingdom began to be referred to as Ubinu after the Itsekhiri word and corrupted Ubni by the Itsekhiri, Edo, Yoruba living together in the royal administrative center of the kingdom. The Portuguese who arrived in 1485 would refer to it as Benin, and the center would become known as Benin City and its empire Benin Empire. The ancient Benin Empire, as with the Oyo Empire which eventually gained political ascendancy over even Ife, gained political strength and ascendancy over much of what is now Midwestern and Western Nigeria, with the Oyo Empire bordering it on the west, the Niger River on the east, and the northerly lands succumbing to Fulani Muslim invasion in the north. Interestingly, much of what is now known as Western Igboland and even Yorubaland was conquered by the Benin Kingdom in the late 19th century. Agba, Akure, Awo and even the present-day Lagos Island, which was named Iko meaning war camp by the Bni. Golden Age. The Oba had become the paramount power within the region. Oba Gway, the first Golden Age Oba, is credited with turning Benin City into city-states from a military fortress built by Ogiso, protected by moats and walls. It was from this bastion that he launched his military campaigns and began the expansion of the kingdom from the Edo-speaking heartlands. Oba Gway was a direct descendant of Wekawa, great-grandson of Oduduwa, Ani of Ife. A series of wars marked the incremental growth of the sacred city from 850 AD until its decline in the 16th century. In the 15th century, Benin became the greatest city of the empire created by Oba Gway. To enclose his palace he commanded the building of Benin's inner wall, a 7-mile-long earthen rampart girded by a moat 50 feet deep. This was excavated in the early 1960s by Graham Connor. Connor estimated that its construction, if spread out over 5 dry seasons, would have required a workforce of 1,000 laborers working 10 hours a day 7 days a week. Gway also added great thoroughfares and erected 9 fortified gateways. Excavations also uncovered a rural network of earthen walls 4 to 8,000 miles long that would have taken an estimated 150 million man-hours to build and must have taken hundreds of years to build. These were apparently raised to mark out territories for towns and cities. 13 years after Gway's death, tales of Benin's splendors lured more Portuguese traders to the city gates. At its maximum extent, the empire extended from the western Igbo tribes on the shores of the Niger River, through parts of the southwestern region of Nigeria in the coastal region of present-day Lagos State. The Oyo Kingdom, which extended through most of southwestern Nigeria to parts of present-day Republic of Benin, was to the west. The state developed an advanced artistic culture, especially in its famous artifacts of bronze, iron and ivory. These include bronze wall plaques and life-size bronze heads depicting the Obas of Benin. The most common artifact is based on Queen Idia, now best known as the Festock mask after its use in 1977 in the logo of the Nigeria-financed and hosted Second Festival of Black and African Arts and Culture. European contact. The first European travelers to reach Benin were Portuguese explorers in about 1485. A strong mercantile relationship developed, with the Edo trading tropical products such as ivory, pepper and palm oil with the Portuguese for European goods such as manila and guns. In the early 16th century, the Oba sent an ambassador to Lisbon, and the King of Portugal sent Christian missionaries to Benin City. Some residents of Benin City could still speak a pidgin Portuguese in the late 19th century. The first English expedition to Benin was in 1553, and significant trading developed between England and Benin based on the export of ivory, palm oil and pepper. Visitors in the 16th and 17th centuries brought back to Europe tales of the Great Benin, a fabulous city of noble buildings, ruled over by a powerful king. However, the Oba began to suspect Britain of larger colonial designs and ceased communications with the British until the British expedition in 1896-97 when British troops captured, burned, and looted Benin City, which brought the Benin Empire to an end. A 17th-century Dutch engraving from Olfert Dappers Norkerij Beschrevinge der Afrikaanse Gewessen, published in Amsterdam in 1668 says, "The king's palace or court is a square, and is as large as the town of Haarlem and entirely surrounded by a special wall, like that which encircles the town. It is divided into many magnificent palaces, houses, and apartments of the courtiers, and comprises beautiful and long square galleries, about as large as the Exchange at Amsterdam, but one larger than another, resting on wooden pillars, from top to bottom covered with cast copper, on which are engraved the pictures of their war exploits and battles." Another Dutch traveller was David van Leendale, who in 1699 gave an eyewitness account. The legions of Benin. The king of Benin can in a single day make 20,000 men ready for war, and, if need be, 180,000, and because of this he has great influence among all the surrounding peoples. His authority stretches over many cities, towns and villages. There is no king thereabouts who, in the possession of so many beautiful cities and towns, is his equal. The Kingdom of Benin offers a snapshot of a relatively well-organized and sophisticated African polity in operation before the major European colonial interlude. Military operations relied on a well-trained disciplined force. At the head of the host stood the Oba of Benin. The monarch of the realm served as supreme military commander. Beneath him were subordinate generalissimos, the Izomo, the Iase, and others who supervised a metropolitan regiment based in the capital, and a royal regiment made up of hand-picked warriors that also served as bodyguards. Benin's Queen Mother also retained her own regiment, the Queen's Own. The metropolitan and royal regiments were relatively stable semi-permanent or permanent formations. The village regiments provided the bulk of the fighting force and were mobilized as needed, sending contingents of warriors upon the command of the king and his generals. Formations were broken down into subunits under designated commanders. Foreign observers often commented favorably on Benin's discipline and organization as better disciplined than any other Guinea nation, contrasting them with the slacker troops from the Gold Coast. Until the introduction of guns in the 15th century, traditional weapons like the spear, short sword, and bow held sway. Efforts were made to reorganize a local guild of blacksmiths in the 18th century to manufacture light firearms, but dependence on imports was still heavy. Before the coming of the gun, guilds of blacksmiths were charged with war production a euro, particularly swords and iron spearheads. Benin's tactics were well organized, with preliminary plans weighed by the Oba and his sub-commanders. Logistics were organized to support missions from the usual porter forces, water transport via canoe, and requisitioning from localities the army passed through. Movement of troops via canoes was critically important in the lagoons, creeks and rivers of the Niger Delta, a key area of Benin's domination. Tactics in the field seem to have evolved over time. While the head-on clash was well known, documentation from the 18th century shows greater emphasis on avoiding continuous battle lines, and more effort to encircle an enemy. Fortifications were important in the region and numerous military campaigns fought by Benin soldiers revolved around sieges. As noted above, Benin's military earthworks are the largest of such structures in the world, and Benin's rivals also built extensively. Barring a successful assault, most sieges were resolved by a strategy of attrition, slowly cutting off and starving out the enemy fortification until it capitulated. On occasion, however, European mercenaries were called on to aid with these sieges. In 1603–04 for example, European cannon helped batter and destroy the gates of a town near present-day Lagos, allowing 10,000 warriors of Benin to enter and conquer it. As payment the Europeans received items, such as palm oil and bundles of pepper. The example of Benin shows the power of indigenous military systems, but also the role outside influences and new technologies brought to bear. This is a normal pattern among many nations and was to be reflected across Africa as the 19th century dawned. Decline. Britain seeks control over trade. The city and empire of Benin declined after 1700. By this time, European activity in the area, most notably through the transatlantic slave trade, resulted in major disruptive repercussions. However, Benin's power was revived in the 19th century with the development of the trade in palm oil and textiles. To preserve Benin's independence, bit by bit the Oba banned the export of goods from Benin, until the trade was exclusively in palm oil. By the last half of the 19th century Great Britain had become desirous of having a closer relationship with the Kingdom of Benin. For British officials were increasingly interested in controlling trade in the area and in accessing the kingdom's rubber resources to support their own growing tire market. Several attempts were made to achieve this end, beginning with the official visit of Richard Burton in 1862 when he was consul at Fernando Po. Following that was an attempt to establish a treaty between Benin and the United Kingdom by Hewtt, Blair and Annesley in 1884, 1885 and 1886 respectively. However, these efforts did not yield any results. Benin resisted becoming a British protectorate throughout the 1880s, but the British remained persistent. Progress was made finally in 1892 during the visit of Vice-Consul H. L. Gway. This mission was significant, being the first official visit after Burton's. Moreover, it would also set in motion the events to come that would lead to Oba-Obonuman's demise. The Gway Treaty of 1892 The Gway Treaty allegedly signed by the king required the Benin Empire to abolish the Benin slave trade and human sacrifice. Despite the stories later told by Gway, there is today still some controversy on a number of points, most of all as to whether the Oba actually agreed to the terms of the treaty as Gway had claimed. First, at the time of his visit to Benin the Oba could not welcome Gway or any other foreigners due to the observance of the traditional Ig festival, which prohibited the presence of any non-native persons during the ritual season. Also, even though Gway claimed the king and his chiefs were willing to sign the treaty, it was common knowledge that Oba-Obonuman was not in the habit of signing one-side treaties. The treaty reads Her Majesty the Queen of Great Britain and Ireland, Empress of India, in compliance with the request of the King of Benin, hereby extend to him and the territory under his authority and jurisdiction, her gracious favour and protection. The treaty also states the King of Benin agrees and promises to refrain from entering into any correspondence, agreement or treaty with any foreign nation or power except with the knowledge of Her Britannic Majesty's government, and finally that it is agreed that full jurisdiction, civil and criminal, over British subjects and their property in the territory of Benin is reserved to Her Britannic Majesty, to be exercised by such consular or other officers as Her Majesty shall appoint for the purpose. The same jurisdiction is likewise reserved to Her Majesty in the said territory of Benin over foreign subjects enjoying British protection, who shall be deemed to be involved in the expression British subjects throughout this treaty. It makes little sense that the Oba and his chiefs would accept the terms laid out in Articles 4-9, or that the Oba or his chiefs would knowingly bestow their dominion upon Queen Victoria for so little apparent remuneration. Under Article 4, the treaty states that all disputes between the King of Benin and other chiefs, between him and British or foreign traders, or between the aforesaid king and neighbouring tribes which cannot be settled amicably between the two parties, shall be submitted to the British consular or other officers appointed by Her Britannic Majesty to exercise jurisdiction in the Benin territories for arbitration and decision or for arrangement. Oba-Obonuman was a tenacious man, which is contrary to the accounts of treaty portrayers such as Gway. He was not doltish. The chiefs attest that the Oba did not sign the treaty because he was in the middle of an important festival which prohibited him from doing anything else. Obonuman maintained that he did not touch the white man's pen. Gway later claimed in his report that the Oba basically accepted the signing of the treaty in all respects. Despite the ambiguity over whether or not the Oba signed the treaty, the British officials easily accepted it as though he did. equals the conflict of 1897 equals, when Benin discovered Britain's true intentions, 8 unknowing British representatives, who came to visit Benin, were killed. As a result, a punitive expedition was launched in 1897. The British force, under the command of Admiral Sir Harry Rawson, razed and burned the city, destroying much of the country's treasured art and dispersing nearly all that remained. The stolen portrait figures, busts, and groups created in iron, carved ivory, and especially in brass are now displayed in museums around the world. See also, Edo people, Edo language, Festock town, History of Nigeria, Walls of Benin, Flag of the Benin Empire. References. Sources: Strayer, Robert. Ways of the World, A Brief Global History with Sources. New York, Bedford St. Martins. ISBN 978-0312583460. Bondarenko DMA Humuarchic Alternative to the Humuarchic State, Benin Kingdom of the 13th–19th centuries. Social Evolution and History 2005. Volume 4, No. 2 pages 18–88. Ezra, Kate. Royal Art of Benin, The Pearls Collection. New York, The Metropolitan Museum of Art. ISBN 9780870996320. Mercury, Karen. The Hinterlands, Historical Fiction about the Benin Expedition of 1897. Medallion Press, 2005, a Europeaic Beta Euro unregistered trademark Benin under British administration, Ruiz, P.M., and D.M. Bondarenko. A Popular History of Benin. The Rise and Fall of a Mighty Forest Kingdom. Frankfurt am Main, Peter Lang, 2003. External links, Edo at Genealogical Gleanings, The Story of Africa, IF and Benin, a Euro BBC World Service, The Origin of Edo's Benin Source Edo World, Benin Kingdom and Edo State Tourism, http, www.edutssandculture.org, The Military System of Benin Kingdom, c. 1440 a Euro 1897, Nimmons, Fidelia Kingdom of Benin Blogs, Fiction, Myths and Lies.